Hey everybody, Bridget Lynn Dolgoff, Conscious of Economics and Urban Farm Project, and I'm coming to you live from the shed. All right, so Friday, I had, I don't have nervous breakdowns like other people have, and that's just not. I don't go catatonic. I mean, I have for one period in my life for a week, but that was about it. And if I get depressed, I'll sleep a couple days. Or I know that I have to stop pushing the envelope and I have to slow down so that everything that I've been working on and creating can actually catch up with me. So instead of going, woo, I have to slow down here so this stuff can kind of catch up, right? Otherwise, I'm running past everything that I'm creating, co-creating, and bringing into this reality. So this would not be my preferred way. This planet is it's like a slow system. And I don't know. I think, originally it was designed like that. We'll talk about that in the ET part. The kind of the more of the design from the beginning of time. But I'm thinking people think it's speeding up. I think it's speeding up in them because they're running fast. They're running faster trying to get what they need. And, you can't do that because then you're in the past and then you're projecting onto your future and your past will be your future. That's left hemisphere. And then you have to have some right hemisphere, which is the now and the present moment and what's going on that changes all of that. So the problem is that we have a 2D. It's either one thing or other. I've talked about this before. And there's no now because there's no 3D, right? There's no 3-part. There's no 4-part, no 5-part. All of it is imaginary. This is a slow operating system. Now, and the way that it was originally designed, and the planet was originally designed for seasons and for growing things, right? On a very physical way, as long also with libraries, right? But it would have just been a planet that would have been slow operating, but in the green, in the plants, in the forest, and giving everything a physical cycles of life, However, on a mental level, the planet is really, it's slow. The energy's super slow. Things don't move forward. The other day I was thinking about, I had all these people I had to call, and I was like, if it had a higher rate, I could just send out a mental email to them and they download the information into them all simultaneously. And I wouldn't have to actually call them all, and it would just happen. I think this is a lot of issue that has to do with healing. Some people do really well, and I can send them those signals, right? And they can have immediate upgrades. And then sometimes they get blocked, because they're in this 2D. They're always weighing things out instead of just being in the now, right? So anyway, this morning I was getting on, I'm doing another platform, and they're interesting because they're getting more and more out of the box, and the people that are doing them are getting more and more savvy. But they're all the platforms just all still seriously suck. They're impossible to navigate. And there's just a lot of stuff. And a lot of the times the platforms just don't work for me. I mean, Udemy, I still haven't gotten paid from those stupid people. And so I'm looking at this platform and I'm thinking, okay, it's Frega. And I'm uploading my services and products and stuff like that. And it's just been really frustrating like the last week because the platform sucks. It doesn't work. It doesn't operate in a flow. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? Which I think is part of the chaos here. Because past, future, past, future, past, future, and no present moment. And you want to get things done, when you're focused on it, you want to just get it done in the present moment and just be done. But when you have to keep going back to it, you keep going back to the past, and then you're for the future, and you can't get the present moment product done. So the stream said to me this morning that, that understands that I feel totally unsuccessful when I should be really successful, with how hard I work. But I also realize like the system's not really completely ready for that. I know that because of the people that I do work on. And Friday, like I had a huge mental breakdown. I had like a perception breakdown. I don't know if it's a breakdown, but in this world, it's like a breakdown. And I just couldn't cope. I just had to stop everything, cancel appointments. I had to just stop. And so I've taken a couple days where I've just slept and ate and played with the dogs and walked and that's about it. Kind of because I'm way over here and I need to catch up with here in order to complete it. So this place just takes a lot of time and effort. I mean, that's all you spend your life doing. It's crazy. It's crazy here. And then you never really get, I don't want to say ahead because, something else that occurred to me this morning is, I've been feeling very kind of unsuccessful. And the stream was showing me that, basically I may feel unsuccessful, but I'm changing the future in the now by participating and showing up. So every time I attempt to utilize a platform, that's kind of more modernized for, streaming of money and people having alternative ways to build different kinds of currencies with their work. And all this is really new. So every time that, the stream was telling me that every time that I deal with a platform or showing me basically that even though I come away feeling like totally disappointed and sometimes angry and unsuccessful, that this is kind of part of what I'm doing right now is that I'm trying all these things out and I'm injecting energy into them and I'm finding their flaws and that's what I'm doing. And so by doing this, right, I'm actually changing the future and bringing this stuff into manifestation by the simple act of participating and trying it out. Just the act of, plugging energy into it. So, it'll make it come about, faster. So the more of us that are kind of doing that, actually participating with these things, right? And then I remembered, my teacher Bavado saying that everything here is opposite of what you think it is. And so I was thinking, well then not being very successful means that I'm being really successful. It was just my point of perception of what I needed, so my level of idealism of success here is, by maybe getting what I need. And if I'm not getting what I need, then it's not considered very successful. And then we have all these weird operating systems on this planet that don't operate on other planets this way. So, like for example, things would just happen really fast and simultaneously, like it's just more kind of, oh, it's just hard to explain, but here it's just like, and because they have all these, crazy statements, paraphrases, things that have been injected into the system and then been given kind of a history. So you have quantum physics, right? So I think it's, in a lot of the shamanism work that I've done, there's always been this key kind of work that is basically, hold on, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. The unintentioned work, right? Where you're still doing your practices, but they're not to do anything, right? They're the undoing, the non-doing. So you still do, the physical exercises, the mental exercises and stuff, but it's about not doing anything, not projecting out, not creating anything, and you're doing them just to do them, not to have any reason to do them or mindset. And ultimately, it comes to the intention, like you're doing them just to do them. It's like a break. You get to undo or not do, or kind of a thought process instead of doing all the time and intending all the time. So you have the quantum physics, paradigm here, which, it's interesting to me that so many people just really don't get. But I think there's been so much suppression here for so long that, people are in a totally different mindset, I think. But say, for example, success, right, is like a label. It's a definition. It's defined. It comes from a point in history. I wonder what that, I should probably, what success, where the word derives. But anyway, we're not just talking about this word, but we're talking about all these other words and paraphrases and things that have been plugged into our system, because language very much is a plug-in, an application that has been downloaded into the original AI system, right? So in quantum physics, you have all these, possibilities and potentials jamming along everywhere, right? And then we have like this moment where we go flick, flick. And now we're focused in on a lighter, right? So we have all this potential and all this stuff going on. And then we focus in on something that catches our eye like a reptile, whoop, whoop, right? And go lighter, and then that's it, right? So all those possibilities and potentials in the moment that we focus in on something, right? We're paying attention to it, right? Noticed it, right? So what if we just got rid of a lot of the words and just allowed, this to go like that, and then wait for it to actually plop out the best possible potential or the best possible possibility for us individually, collectively, planetarily, instead of trying to manifest and force it. Because I think that's what a lot of these problems are right now, is that there's too much force going on. And we had a conversation about this with Linnea Gord on my show on Saturday, where we're talking about people are trying to vibrate at too high of a level, and that we really need to bring that vibration way down, down a notch, but into a place where we're in the now, but we're allowing, the quantum field to do what's best and pick out the best possible things for us. And then, so you got another issue, you got trust. Maybe you don't trust, right? Maybe you don't trust yourself, which is always the first thing. And then, trust the quantum field, to just do what it's going to do. And if you don't like the outcome, then you can, roll another bowling ball down the alley and see what else it strikes and give the quantum field more information until it poops out the best potential and possibility that you want. But sometimes you've got to slow down, right? Because your mind and everything and emotions are projecting all these different things all over the place. And the quantum field is taking that information into account as well. And then it becomes an individual clusterfuck. We have to kind of, that's, I think, mostly, like what shamanism has always been to me is the ability to hold an intention consecutively for a long period of time. Like this combat veteran farm. I mean, it wasn't always going to be a combat veteran farm. Components of it have developed over time, but it was always wanting to benefit humanity and have a beautiful farm and take care of animals and teach people how to, help nature and the earth and get medicine and heal and all these different things. But it's been 17 years, and that I've been working on it and developing it and, putting it together. And so the quantum field is developing it over time. It doesn't really just happen like overnight. So anyway, maybe sometimes the things that we're, looped into, I've talked about looping before, I think. The whole crazy, that whole looping application, it's been around for a really, really long time. Like, I mean, you have shamanism practices that go back 10,000 years dealing with some of the concepts of looping. So that they've been working on trying to not bypass, but develop points of power and energy in their field to be able to notice it right away, and be able to kind of not stop it or halt it, but change its effect. Let's just say that. Okay, so maybe I'll talk about looping. So this is a story about looping, right? In a way that I think that most people could understand looping. But looping has, 64 components to it, right? Remember we talk about the 64, the Star of Life pattern, and I forget that geometrical shape, what goes to 64 kind of a thing. One of these days, I'll get it. So everything is like in a, like the range is 64. And so a looping would have aspects of 64 different layers. That's why people will say, the same experience, or same thing I have to keep clearing over and over and over and over again. Well, it runs, a 64 program. I mean, not always you have to go through things 64 times before you're like, I got it, right? And I can generate enough power to not allow it to affect me anymore, right? Because my system will notice it far long before it comes, which changes everything, right? It goes back into the infinite potential and gets shaken around like a martini. All right. So let me just tell this looping story, just so that it's kind of fresh in people's mind. Okay. So this is like a very physical world looping. And this is would really help me to really be able to start noticing the looping that's going on around us constantly. Like, that's why it always seems like a same situation, but it has a new face and or a new environment, but it's the same old thing. And people will tell you that that's your crap. Sometimes it's not your crap. Sometimes it's the application of the system that picks something up, the looping app, I'll call it, and it's picked stuff up and it's developing it as its own system, right? And now you're playing along with it, right? Or it's playing along with you, kind of a thing. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's about as much sense as I can make of it right now. All right, so it's really kind of a tough story because I believe the being was a black-eyed adult. And I'm not going to go totally into how crazy the situation got, but I really had to defend myself because I was pretty sure that she or it or whatever was going to kill me, probably. Anyway, so I was living in New Mexico, and I was living, really far out of town. And there were always people that were kind of stragglers, that came through there. And there was a Buddhist center where they could actually go and sleep, which is super cool. There's so many things that were amazing about Taos, New Mexico that I've never seen anywhere else. It's so like community oriented and just kind of laid back and conscious and collective. And anyway, so I met her at a place that I used to go and eat. And up where I was living, I had no electricity. I had no cell phone. I had no, barely power. I had 2 wood stoves in this little old cabin, 1800s cabin that was in really good shape and really was insulated well. And during that time, it had lots of spring snow. I think I was like 8,500 feet elevation. It was a really interesting place to live. It was, it was a totally kind of pretty much off the grid kind of a deal. And it was just an interesting place. There's a lot of other weird stuff about it. But I'm weird, so I always end up in places that are really, really, really weird. And I had talked to a neighbor about that place. I'll just put this in real quick. But there was a neighbor that lived up there. There's all these like cabins and really rustic, mountainy kind of stuff. Close to the Angel Fire, ski resort. Really, at that time, it was super rustic up there. Anyway, I talked to a neighbor, and he'd been there for so long that he said there was a huge amount of Jewish people that influxed into like Taos and parts of New Mexico because they gave away land, like acres and 2 acres of land for free. And I forget when that happened, kind of outside Taos, New Mexico. So there's a lot of people that moved there. So you either have people that are super, super poor, totally off the grid living, or you have people that have extremely amounts of money. So anyway, but this guy was saying, when there was that huge Jewish influx there were a lot of people that were there that he thought worked for the government, like on the side and had lived up there. And he said, when the Long Island meltdown happened, like half of the people went missing that lived up there that were never seen again. And it was just like completely ignored. So it's almost like, either like, who is John Galt moment or they were kidnapped and went missing, right? So that they couldn't talk about what happened with the Long Island deal. So, and these people were kind of affiliated, sort of, he said, like, in all different kinds of ways with the Long Island nuclear plant, maybe working for the government, physicists, things like that. So that was interesting. Kind of creeped me out, actually. So I was living up there, and this woman thing, and there was mind control. This thing, the biggest thing is that I lost my thoughts, and it ended up sort of in a way talking me into allowing it to stay with me up in my cabin. Needless to say, all this crazy stuff happened. It at 2:00 in the morning, it's pitch dark up there. I was up in a loft, but it was really hard to get to, and it woke up and sorry, I know the story, like, really. She started screaming, Rachel! I mean, this totally started screaming, Rachel. So she was down below, screaming, Rachel. She became, after a point in time, became really violent. I had to fight her in the middle of the night and get her out the bare doors on the cabin. It was pretty intense. Learned my lesson about inviting people to help them, especially into where you sleep. So, I don't know. Let me see. That was like 2008. It was the beginning of 2008. Yeah, and there was snow out, big snowstorm. Anyway, so let's see. So this would have been 2013. So I was living in Reno, and I was living in this condo building, and I was living in the second level. I had a roommate, and there was an outside window that kind of oversaw the pool, like a low income kind of condo with locking, doors, security doors. And so the window I had in my room over kind of looked the pool, but this was kind of winter time when the pool was closed. And there was kind of an area you could drive through the property there, but it's kind of chained off. So I wake up in the middle of the night, right? Just like the last scenario. There's a man outside, and he's screaming, Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. And then he starts pounding on the downstairs window that's right below my window, right? And then his aggression is growing and growing and growing. And then there's this huge battle, and he's trying to kick the door in and trying to get in the main door. He ends up taking a gun out of his pocket, and bullets like went everywhere all over the ground. And he takes the gun and he breaks out the downstairs people's window. And I totally freaked out. Like, I got up, grabbed my dog, went to the furthest point away in the apartment in case the gun went off. And I mean, who knows what's going to happen, right? So it took me a couple of months to chew on that. And I realized, okay, there's a whole bunch of components here that are the same. I'm above, the person's below. The name Rachel is being used. There's weapons and violence involved. And, yeah. And I'm involved somehow, right? So then I really started looking into shamanism looping, and I was having a hard time trying to find stuff that indicated looping so that I could actually figure it out, right? And see what kind of looping that I have going on in my system. And that's why I call it the looping app, because it'll keep bringing you situations, because it's like an AI on its own, the looping AI, I guess. And once you notice that it's there, a lot of times, a lot of this stuff isn't your shit. It isn't your crap. It's an AI creating it, right? Because it's already created one scenario like it. So it develops other scenarios like it. And this is how it plays out your kind of, holographic life or whatever, projected life. So sometimes in order to get in control of your life, you have to get in control of the looping mechanism that's going on, right? So that you don't loop you don't really have control over it once it starts. I mean, we all have looping. So we can't really control the looping, but what we can do is we can stop participating in it. So as soon as like key things start to happen, you're like, oh, I know this story. I'm going that way. I'm moving out of this apartment. I'm, not dealing with these people anymore. You know what I mean? I'm not going to have relationships with these types of personalities. I'm not going to, be in these kind of vulnerable settings. So then you can start to change how you live your life. And then it changed the looping, and the looping app has to like figure out other ways to deal with things. So, but anyway, it's constant and consistent. All right. Well, hopefully that's your morning thing, your Star Kid report. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. Bridget Lynn Dolgoff, Conscious of Economics and Urban Farm Project. Thanks. Bye-bye.